This podcast is brought to you in association with VM Finance. VM Finance funds development and investment opportunities for residential, commercial and mixed-use properties and provides tailored support and innovative financing solutions to help you realise your vision and achieve your goals. To find out more about VM Finance, visit their website vmfinanceltd.com. Hello and welcome to Scheming, the Place North podcast that gives property folk a platform to talk about three schemes they think about a lot. I'm your host, Dan Whelan, Deputy Editor of Place Northwest. If you've been around an office in Manchester recently and thought, this is a bit different, there's a good chance that today's guest had something to do with it. He prides himself on thinking differently when it comes to design, in a bid to challenge the norm and create places that allow people working in them to flourish. Joining me today to talk about the three schemes that he thinks about most is founder of Sheila Bird Studio, Atul Bansal. Atul, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
You're more than welcome. Thank you very much for being a part of it. So, Atul, you have a mantra that you adhere to, don't you, which is love what you do. Talk to me a little bit about how that came about and what it means in practice when you are delivering a project or designing a project.
I think something I've learned from a very young age is to, if you restrict what you do around what you love doing, you'll love life. It's as simple as that. And along the way, I decided that I was never going to do anything that I was no good at, and anything that I was really bad at as well. So I think once you do that, it's really simple. Everything you do, you love. That's it. It's not complicated. You know, I can't add up. I can't read properly. I'm dyslexic. So all the things that I think are really boring are things I'm really shit at. So it's simple, really.
Yeah.
So I can draw. I love dreaming. I love scheming. I love designing. So I stick to that, and I just employ people who are better than me at all the things that I'm crap at. And life's wonderful. And the other reason why, that whole thing is important in my mind is how we set up the company and why it's called Sheila Bird. And that was all round a love affair between my old partner who passed away nearly 15 years ago, who was on his third wife and met this beautiful young lady who was gorgeous, and he wanted to go out with her, and she said no. He said, I'll fall in love with you. And we were just starting off the business, didn't have a name for the business, and to prove to her that he loved her, we said, I'll call the business after you, call Sheila Bird. What do you think? And she said, well, if you prove that to me, I'll go out for dinner. So he said to me, okay, fine by me. We were going to call it Space Interior Something Limited, and so we called it Sheila Bird.
Wow.
And that was her name, and they went out together and they fell in love and they got married. And that was the story. And that's why we called Sheila Bird. In those days, we had a hashtag on our letterheads. Can you remember letterheads? Well, you probably can't.
I'm too young for that, I'm afraid.
Letterheads at the bottom there, they had a hashtag saying, love, baby, do it.
Wow.
And that's where it all started.
Brilliant. I mean, as company name origin stories goes, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
You're seen, and Sheila Bird Studio is seen as a disruptor, I think it's fair to say. Would you agree with that?
No, I don't think we are. All we're doing is trying to see into the future.
Okay.
Right. It's very simple. If you're an interior design business, you either work in two or three different ways. One, you just follow the trend. You follow the current colours out there, etc., and all you're doing is repackaging what's already out there. That's one way of living a life. What we try and think about is something that hasn't happened yet, and we also try and somebody said, I want to design an office. Well, what is an office? So we don't start with colours and stuff. We start with what is it. So we're not a disruptor. We just ask questions. And sometimes the client who talks to you doesn't actually know what he wants. So our job is not to disrupt. Our job is to really get to the nuts of what's going on, and that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And your projects are aimed at sort of creating environments where people can thrive and be creative and flourish. How does that manifest itself typically in one of your schemes? Because I know you're always thinking differently, but there must be hallmarks to it.
I think it's changed over the period of time, and businesses were all about, we work for businesses really, we're all about telling you they want their brand, if they had one, to really stand out for what they believe in. That's what they're saying now. It never used to be that way. Well, our colour's blue, and that's our name. What are you going to do with it? Now people care more about the people that work for them. So therefore, it's a very woolly thing. It's a very, very sort of sensitive thing that a lot of people in suits don't understand. So our challenge is different. Our challenge is all about making sure the customer that's employing us understands what he should be doing, not what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the challenge. And people are at the core of all of that. And we start talking about what people want and what do their staff want. Well, what do they want? Well, I don't know. Well, isn't that the wrong way to start the conversation? You know, we're not here to design for you. We're here to design for your people. And to be honest with you, you're 62 and they're all 32. You know, it's really simple, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually getting them to understand. And if they don't understand that or want to be part of that conversation, we just walk away. We won't do the job.
Okay.
Simple as that.
If it doesn't align with your approach?
Well, if it doesn't align with the brief.
Okay.
Right? That's key. It's not our approach. Mm-hmm. Our approach is not what we want. Our approach is understanding what the client thinks he needs. Mm-hmm. And I was actually saying, well, actually, we think you need X, Y, and Z. If they don't get it, we're always going to fail.
Okay.
So what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, and remember, we don't pitch for work. So we're in a lucky position because we're going for 30-odd years. Well, we do no longer pitch for work. Stopped doing that 10 years ago. So we get asked to do work.
That must be a nice position to be in.
Well, it's nice because you already know that they understand that you're offering something that they think they need. Mm. So therefore, you haven't got this question mark about whether we're the right fit, you know, and that's cool. But when you get to speak to them, sometimes they think it's really cool because all they want is a pool table. We say, there you go and buy one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get that because of the generation that you are and the age group you are, but so other people don't.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, we're very lucky in that way. So, and because we're a small and passionately small business, we're not chasing the dollar. We want to chase the experience. So we haven't got to get work in to survive. We get enough work in, so we're generally busy. And I don't want stress in my life.
Yeah, absolutely, quite right. So as you know, on today's podcast, and the whole point of this podcast, scheming, I'm going to ask you about 3 schemes. They are the one you're most proud of.
Yeah, that one's easy.
That's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
The one you wish you had done. And the third one is the dream project. We'll come to all of these.
Okay.
We'll come to all of these.
That's a hard one.
So, let the scheming begin. What is the project in your long and distinguished career that you're most proud of?
That's New Century.
Okay.
It's a building in Noma.
In Manchester?
Yeah,
okay.
in Sadler's Yard. And it's a forgotten building. I was working in the area in Federation House. This was, 10 years ago? I looked across Sadler's Yard, and there was this building that was black, ribs on it, and just stood there. It was boarded up, and I thought, what the hell is that? It looked really interesting. It took me a while to find out what it was and who owned it. Happened to be my client that was doing the work on.
Okay.
And then I got to go inside it. I was like, oh, my God.
So you were already working at something else at Noma when you came across this?
Yeah, well, it was across the road.
Okay.
But it wasn't that project.
Right.
And Noma at that point was owned by the Co-op and Federated Hermes.
Yeah.
It's now owned completely by Federated Hermes. So went and had a look at it, and it was actually built, and it was connected to the buildings around it, and it was built as Co-op's ballroom, right, and its restaurant, and also had some storage in it.
Oh, right.
There's a bit that stood out, and it was grade 2 listed. I didn't know that then. And I went upstairs, looked around, and thought, oh, this is delicious. And if you've ever been there...
I have. I went to a gig there recently.
Right. So that was built by the Co-op, right, to entertain.
Okay.
And all it was a ballroom. They had all their corporate events there, et cetera, et cetera. And the ground floor, which is now the kitchens, used to be underground.
Right.
And there was below that, there was another underground basement. And below that, there was another underground basement. So I fell in love with the building. I thought, this is gorgeous. You know, why is it in this state? Then started a conversation with them thinking, well, you know, if I can find a use for it, would you be interested? He says, well, yeah, go ahead. Nobody else knows what to do with it. So I got together 4 people who were madder than me and more money than I've got and came up with an idea of turning the basement into a music school for teaching kids how to play music. One of my clients and best friends ran a business that did that, and he loves basements. I knew he'd love this. The ground floor, I thought, if you open it all up and connect to Sadler's Yard, put all these glass windows in, that could be a great bar, food court, and then the upstairs is a music hall. You know, and the idea was that the students in the basement could learn their craft. They could learn how to do stage management. They could learn how to do lighting in the real environment. They could set up programs on the stage upstairs. They could work behind the bar on the ground floor. All of a sudden, this whole idea of mixing something together became a dream.
A self-sustaining kind of ecosystem.
Yeah, and it was about music. And Manchester at the moment was growing and growing in its history of music we all know about, but it was losing its edge. I thought this is a great opportunity. So got these people together, and they're all got different skill sets that I didn't possess, and made a perfect partnership and put together a scheme. And we went to see the landlord, and he said, here you are, brand new company. We want you to spend £6 million doing X, Y, and Z and putting a new road at the back, etc., etc. We'll spend about the same. We're a new start company. What do you think? And they loved it. They must have thought we were nuts. But they did it. And that's a testament of the landlord.
Yeah, absolutely.
Testament of the local authority in supporting it. And they thought it was a great idea.
Yeah, and it is a fantastic venue. Like you say, the people will be familiar with the ground floor, probably, the food hall, which seems to be, especially when there's gigs on, seems to be really thriving. And then upstairs, like you say, you've got this fantastic music venue with there's something special about the ceiling.
You got lights now which change colours and they can be rigged to the music. The lights were in there already, but we tweaked them a little bit.
Okay,
we rebulbed them by accident. And the basement, you've got a beautiful sprung floor, dance floor. Tina Turner played there, Jimi Hendrix played there. Yeah, it's got a lot of history attached.
That's the thing, is the heritage of it, and that's something that is actually in Noma generally has been done really well, hasn't it? Taking these historic buildings and bringing them back to life.
And then the basement, the crowning glory is what happens in the basement, which people don't see. 500 students learning how to do digital music, real music.
Wow.
We got professional grade recording studios in the basement. Everything, and they can do stuff on PCs, and they can manipulate and create light, sound with written word and music. And then, when there's a gig on upstairs, some of the bands will come downstairs and have a chat with them all. Oh, wow. Really cool. And all of that stuff is basically, the whole building's just got a vibe. It's beats and beats and beats and beats. And this is our 18th month in operation, and now it's known. Yeah. Now it's known for what it is. It's got a name. So bands saying, we want to go there.
And the branding side, because you're that's part of what you do, isn't it?
Yes, we created the branding around New Century, and the tone of voice in terms of how it's presented to the public, how it communicates to the public. It was all about creating that nostalgia without being too cliched.
Okay,
and I think that works.
That was the kind of what you were trying to strike.
Well, basically, we wanted to get it opened on the 60th year. Okay, and when it happened, it was amazing. When New Century was built, it was like this desert around. They built this building. Same time that the new Manchester airport was being built, and stuff in America was happening that was incredible. So the pop explosion was happening all over the world, and Manchester, that part of Manchester, was the bit. And it survived. And we found walls in there that were listed that nobody knew that existed, and all that sort of stuff. Right. So it wouldn't have happened without the 4 other individuals, right, that made up the company that own it, without the landlord. Hermes, Federated Hermes, and without local authority support. And all of those are people that people take the piss out of being just boring and bureaucratic. Those people made it happen. Yeah. It's a true reflection of what the city's going to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Well said. And if you haven't been, those listening, if you haven't been to New Century, do check it out. Go to a gig, get some food, or maybe go and learn how to play an instrument. So, Atul, moving on, the second scheme that we're going to talk about, the one you wish you had done, the one that got away.
There's so many that we didn't get to do. None of them are our fault, but this one was wonderful. So when we started doing Social Chain in Manchester for them, they talked to me about, do you fancy doing a project in New York?
Okay, so Social Chain, they're a social media marketing business,
which grew up in Manchester.
Steven Bartlett.
Yeah, Steven Bartlett, regional firm.
Who has is semi-famous for doing a podcast himself.
Correct, he does. So we met Steve. He rang us up and said, do you want to come and help me with my new place? I said, yeah, met him. Thought he's a fascinating individual. Middle of doing his, I think we finished his office in Manchester, and then a lady called Kira, who was his head of happiness. She now runs Feel Good Club.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So sit down. We're off to New York next week. So what for? So we've got an office up there. We want you to do that. Yeah, absolutely. So we flew off to New York, looked at this amazing building, and it was basically an old wine storage depot in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow.
Right? And it had columns every 6 feet. And it was like 19 meters tall. It's not exaggeration, but it was bloody tall. Right? What can we do with this? So we created this scheme where the brief was we wanted a party place where we can do things, but also want all these meetings. So we created this brief where there were tree houses on top of all the columns.
Oh, wow.
Right, so little rooms that you had to go up a steps to, and everything was up there. So you walked on this footbridge, which is almost like going through a jungle, and you walked off into all these little rooms. Bloody brilliant. And then he wanted a recording studio, a podcast studio. There was a basement, so we turned it upside down. So all the rooms were fixed to the roof.
Why?
Right, because it was cool, right? And you walked into the room, and all you see up, there's all these boxes stuck to the roof. They're all the podcasting studios, and the bottom of these boxes lit up and shone on the floor, right? So it was like walking into this dark space, and all you can see is these light fittings where actually there were rooms.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it was really, really cool. You know, you had another elevated staircase. Oh, it was amazing. And we could afford to do it. The budgets were bang on, etc., etc.
What happened?
I think what happened was that the landlord thought it was such a great idea that he decided it was too good for Steve Bartlett.
Right.
And pulled out the deal, right? And said, you can't have it.
Wow.
And then we spent ages looking for other building, and it never happened because that was always the benchmark.
Yeah.
You know, how can we do this, etc. And Steve said, I'm not doing anything that was second-hand. I'm not doing anything that wasn't there.
And that must be music to your ears when a client says that to you.
Oh, yeah.
Just gives you license.
Yeah. So Steve's actually a very interesting guy. He's a great reflection of what happens to people when they start off with nothing and they fight for everything they've got. So therefore they aren't worried about changing their mind or whatever, because that's how their minds work.
He said on one of his podcasts, I think he might have said it a few times actually, that he's an excellent quitter.
Yeah.
So if something's not working for him, he'll just quit it straight away, and he sees that as a positive.
Yeah.
That scheme that you've described, it sounds wacky.
It wasn't. It was perfect for the brief.
Okay.
It wasn't wacky.
But so to my uninitiated mind, it sounds wacky, and to a lot of people in property who you were talking about before, think inside the box, that might sound wacky. Do you ever receive, or do you ever meet with resistance? Your ideas? Do you ever butt heads with people?
Of course we do. I meet resistance from clients and from some of the people that work with us, but that's healthy.
Okay.
You know, I'm not always right. You know, I'm wrong a lot of the time. It doesn't matter. All you do is you discuss something, which is why I hate Zoom and, you know, and all those other platforms where only one person can speak.
Right.
You can't have an argument.
Okay.
How can you have a discussion now? We're interrupting each other, and we're allowed to because that's natural. So I think when you're trying to create something, you can't create in isolation. If it's just you telling everybody what to do, it's dictatorship. It doesn't work. The creative process isn't like that. You know, the creative person's discussion is about, well, how do we do this? What do we do? And loads of ideas come out. Some of them are totally bonkers, but that doesn't matter. It's what comes out of the conversation, and that's with the client. And our job is to make the client understand what is possible. That's what he's paying us for. You know, he wants 15 rooms. If you just draw him 15 rooms, you're boring. Yeah. You know, what is a room? What are you going to use it for? What is its purpose? Do you know what I mean?
COVID must have been a difficult time for you.
It was brilliant.
But in terms of that, not being able to have those arguments that fueled the creativity.
Well, yes, it was. It was for that part of the thing. But what it was brilliant for is all the clients said, no, we're not going to proceed because what you're talking about is just not going to work, about working in a different way, came back. So it does work. We've just done it. So can we have another conversation? It was brilliant for our business. The busiest year we ever had was when COVID was lifted.
Because everyone was thinking we've got to adapt somehow.
Yeah, and all the people who had the real money to do it said we couldn't do it because it was a stupid idea. Nobody would have worked that way. Well, they bloody well did for nearly a year.
How big a change has COVID had on in the sort of the world that you work in, designing offices? Has it been as seismic as everyone says?
It has. I'll tell you why. It's got nothing to do with design. It's to do with businesses' perception of what's right and what's wrong. Okay. They suddenly realised that they did not decide what their staff did.
The staff took back the power.
The staff always had the power, didn't know how to articulate it. Okay. Yeah, and that's the big difference. Okay. And all of a sudden, there was a drive for open plan, because it saved money. And then all these members of the public, their staff, who used to work at home in their flats in total privacy, came back and says, I don't want to work on that plan. I want my own room. I want my own space, because that's how I worked. And if you don't want it, I'm going home. So that was the power they had, and businesses couldn't do anything about it. So all of a sudden they had to change everything. So it's a great way of suddenly opening up the floodgates about different ways of working and realising that people need more than one type of space.
Yeah.
And that's key. And also the businesses realise we don't need to provide access for everybody. Some businesses still find that hard to cope with, but it's brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant. Okay, moving on to the third and final scheme we're going to talk about. So the dream project. Now, the idea behind this one is that to set your imagination to run wild. So this can be anything. So reimagining Piccadilly Gardens.
Yeah.
It could be converting St. John's Cathedral into apartments. It could be flipping the Eiffel Tower on its head if you wanted to do that. I don't know why you'd want to do that. But it can be absolutely anything. So the dream project, Atul.
That's a hard one. I think actually, if I look at it in the words that you described, I think it's really easy. As a business, we dream all the time, right? I don't like being asleep. I love to dream. I dream when I'm awake, right? And every single project we do is a dream. So at the moment, we're working with Steve Bartlett's new headquarters in London for Flight Story. That's a dream. Same time, we're doing Lad Bibles, new HQ in London. That's another dream, And every single time they're all connected because they're all about a space, a place that doesn't exist. And you have to have imagination because to where that needs to go. So my dream project was to do them all at the same time, but we are, they're all different parts of your brain. And I think that is my dream project. We're also involved in Campfield, which is restoring a Grade 2 style listed building.
The former Air and Space Museum in Manchester.
Correct. Okay. Now it's going to be turned into something that's just amazing.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It's basically a space that's partly funded by lots of grants, etc., and the local authority and Allied London. Mike Ingalls is a visionary. He called us in to help with the direction of the space because he knew that we dreamt a lot. And we came up with an idea of creating some different types of space in the building that encourages learning and education, and also something that was so exciting that people would want to come and work there. I think you've got to remember, people have got a reason to go to work now. They've got to be interested in the building or the space they're in. So we came up with this idea, which was a total dream. And he supported it. The town hall loved it. And now it's being built, and that's incredible. We're doing stuff for Steve Bartlett in London for Flight Story, which is totally bonkers.
Are you bringing back the idea of the podcast studios on the ceiling for that?
No, it's all changed.
Okay.
That's gone. That's been done. That's in New York. We're in a different world. We're in a different dream, really, different dream state. So there's something more interesting happening down there.
Okay.
And also what he's doing has changed from what he was doing then, because the whole world changes, whole world moves on. And people are hungry for things. So that's more to do with what the space is about. And then you've got Lad Bible, Solly, good friend. We helped him when he first set up in Manchester to set up his interiors. In fact, Manchester was Solly and Steve Bartlett in the early days. And we would go from one office meeting to another office meeting, and they're both, what are you doing for him? What are you doing for him? Obviously, we never said anything. But they're good friends now, but they're in different markets. So, they've asked us to help with something. So it's cool. When we live in a permanent dream, it's crazy. You wake up and there's another dream that pops up. And that's cool.
Sounds amazing.
It is amazing. And it's because it's great to do. So if you keep saying no to all the boring shit, life is full of fun. It's simple.
And what about a dream client? Because you've got some interesting clients. Steve Bartlett being one of them. Is there someone that you've not worked with that you'd absolutely love to work with because their ethos aligns with yours?
I don't think that's my perfect client. I don't want to work with a client where ethos aligns with us because then it's easy. Yeah. I think I want to work for a client who's never worked for a designer before. Yeah. Who's never experienced what design can offer their business. I'd love to work for a law firm.
Okay.
Right. Who've got preconceived ideas. They've got existing habits, some of them bad. I'd love a law firm to say to us, come and tell us what we should be doing. Or a big law firm has lots and lots of partners who are really old, who suddenly think they want to be. I mean, I'm old, I'm 64, right? So age is only what you make it be. And I think a law firm will be amazing because they've got so many habits. Businesses have got habits. Most of them are bad habits, but you don't know they're bad habits. We did a piece of work for, this is one of my favourite stories, where this guy rang us up and says, I need some help. All my staff are depressed. Okay, I'll come and see you. And I went and saw him. He runs a call centre, and the call centre is for women who've got problems. So all their staff talk to him, and they've got problems. They're all women. And everybody's miserable. You say, what do I need to do to make cheer them all up? Got chatting with them. In fact, I didn't know what to do, so I asked them to come and help me. It was a lady. And she went and talked to them, and she said, they're all lonely. Okay, interesting. So that's what I found out. How do I make them unlonely? This guy thought, well, what we're going to do? We're going to paint the walls, we're going to put some flowers. No, we're going to build a big pink table. What do you mean? I'm going to build a table that will seat 40 people and it's pink. And we're going to have 40 chairs. Right, all the chairs are going to be random chairs. How much is that going to cost me? That's all I was worried about, right? Didn't cost a lot because second-hand tables, second-hand chairs, paint them, put a sign over that says no tech. You are going to provide them with fruit every morning on that table. And within 6 months, they were happy as business ever because they sat down, had some fruit and had a chat.
Wow.
If I said to them, I'm going to provide you a table with 40 chairs and it was an ordinary table, he wouldn't have said no. He thought the pink was brilliant because he thought that was interior design. Right? do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the staff thought, this is different. We're getting permission to do something. So the colour pink was irrelevant. The fact that it was something else was the key. Yeah?
It kind of encapsulates what you were saying earlier about your approach. That's a simple solution, but you wouldn't have arrived at it if you had not known what questions to ask.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know the answer. And all you need to do is ask somebody who knows the answer.
Yeah.
And that's part of we're good at doing. We don't need to own everything. Sometimes all you know is that you need to ask a question, you need to answer, and you've got to answer it. Go and find somebody who can help you.
Yeah. I want to throw one last project at you.
Go
on. You've done a lot of work in Noma. We spoke about New Century Hall. Yeah. I think it's Federation House you also worked on.
Yeah.
There's obviously the prospect of a large skyscraper in Noma. The CIS Tower, once the tallest building in Europe. Yeah. It's currently sat vacant.
Yeah.
What would you do with that? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
I think it's really simple, that one, because the building is listed, so you can't do much to it. You can't affect the fabric. I know that building is no longer in the ownership of Federated Hermes. It belongs to a private developer. Mm-hmm. It's had loads of attempts to turn it into lots of different things. For whatever reason, it's never happened. I think it's partly to do with the investment of the building. Mm-hmm. All the facades got to be replaced, etc., etc. I think it's an amazing building that can be lots and lots of different things. I think it's an opportunity to create something that's almost like a cultural hub. I'll be doing some work for another organisation, and I'm thinking of that building, not for them because it's too big, but the principle is that this organisation is having real difficulty in recruiting people, right? Purely because nobody knows who they are. Of a younger generation. Old generation know they are, but nobody else knows because they're that. So I said, and they can't recruit. So why don't you set up your own university? Why don't you teach young kids, rip up how you get a degree and set your own degree course up? It only lasts a year and a half. Why don't you do that and then recruit from that pool and employ them in your space? Yeah. And why don't you put accommodation above it or a hotel or whatever, right? So they like that idea. That building's perfect for that. And then
certainly got the scale.
Yeah, and then what you could do is you can get out hold of a university and say, well, do you want to accreditate a course that doesn't exist? Oh yeah, we'd love to do that if the company's the right company. And that building could become something like that. It's too big to be an office because it doesn't fit any of the rules. But what are the rules nowadays? So it has to be a creative, inventive space. It's too big to be, a WeWork nonsense rubbish thing. So it has to have a purpose. The views out of it are brilliant once you get past the fact that windows are really cloudy. So somebody's got to spend an awful lot of money replacing all the cladding. Yeah. It wouldn't be great if there's no cladding. It was just an empty space. It'd be fantastic. I know that's not possible, but that'd be cool, wouldn't it? What happens if it was just a planted tower of trees? Every single floor was a big planter box. Took out all the cladding and it was just beautiful. And the trees were growing out the top and it's coming down the building. It becomes an oasis. That would be cool.
I feel like we're inside one of your dreams.
Well, but it's not silly, is it? We've got this whole idea of you want to do things that are interesting. Why can't it become a vertical garden? Anybody can go in, put some range on the outside and plant a full of trees, let it just grow. That'd be awesome.
Sounds good to me.
You've got no problems with ventilation because you've got no windows. You haven't got to replace the cladding. That's also cool. So it's really simple. The concrete's a concrete. Can you imagine everybody's there taking photographs? The tallest vertical garden in the whole world. At the top, you have this most amazing bar. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
It'd be cool. You'd be there, wouldn't you? You'd be there.
Absolutely.
We'd be on the 17th floor because we're not important enough to get to the top.
Oh, it's an exclusive bar.
I'm sure there always is, isn't there? But that's what it should be turned into. Our start again should be turned into a vertical garden.
There you go.
You can save money by not putting the cladding on it.
Absolutely. You mentioned that you're 64.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't sound like you've got any any ideas on retiring anytime soon?
Okay, so Vivienne Westwood, really, really influential designer. She was interviewed by somebody like you, and he asked her right at the end of the interview, he said, and when do you intend to retire? And do you know what she said? She said, okay, I get up when I want, I go to work when I want, I decide what I want to do, I decide when I want to go home, I decide when I want to go on holiday, and nobody tells us this. Yeah. I said, well, I already do that now. The one when I'm going to retire. Yeah. So when you retire, you give up. Well, it depends on what sort of person you are. Sorry for swearing.
That's fine.
But what I'm trying to get at is that I'm living my dream. I don't want to retire. That means you stop doing what you like. I haven't got a hobby. I don't play golf. And I love getting up. Love doing that. I get up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock every morning. I love it.
You love what you do.
I love what I do. Simple as that. And if everybody in the world did that, we'd have no wars. Simple as that.
Absolutely. Atul, thank you very much for scheming with me today.
You're welcome.
And thank you very much for listening. Please do join us next week for another episode of the Scheming Podcast. This podcast is brought to you in association with VM Finance. VM Finance funds development and investment opportunities for residential, commercial and mixed-use properties and provides tailored support and innovative financing solutions to help you realise your vision and achieve your goals. To find out more about VM Finance, visit their website vmfinanceltd.com.